Nature needs saving. However, transitioning to renewable energy sources is not as simple as it seems. Creating the necessary infrastructure requires resources, the extraction of which is linked to the development of thousands of new deposits, which is harmful to the environment. Take the Penasquito mine in Mexico, for example. It spans 100 square kilometers and is surrounded by 2 dumps of highly toxic waste, stretching 1.5 kilometers. A massive tailings dam 11 kilometers wide and 150 meters high contains a reservoir with harmful sediment. The mine will be a source of 10,000 tons of silver, a precious metal essential for transitioning to green technologies. But to achieve the decarbonization goals by 2050, the world needs another 300 mines the size of Penasquito just to extract the required amount of silver. The same number of deposits is needed for extracting other valuable minerals. Thus, on a global scale, the development of thousands of new large mineral deposits is required. Decarbonizing the global economy is extremely necessary, but this task seems almost impossible. By 2050, the demand for copper, lithium, chromium, nickel, graphite, zinc, silicon, cobalt, manganese, and rare earth elements will increase more than 100 times just to sustain the supply of electric vehicles. This number will significantly increase when considering the need for resources to generate solar and wind energy. We need to increase the extraction of everything, but there are not so many explored resources in the world. Even if resources were discovered 100 times greater, there might not be enough capacity to extract the necessary materials in a timely manner. The intertwining of geopolitics, environmentally friendly minerals, and decarbonization seems insurmountable. Difficult times are ahead. There's no denying that. However, discussing how countries cope with this challenge is entirely possible. A peaceful agreement with nature essentially boils down to achieving a clean zero level of emissions, or carbon neutrality. This is the key task of the 21st century. However, breaking free from old habits is not easy. It remains uncertain whether the international community can meet this challenge. To imagine the scale of transitioning to a green economy, let's consider a 50-megawatt gas turbine. To replace it, you would need 15 wind turbines, the size of the Washington Monument. Constructing such a farm would require 15,000 tons of iron ore, 25,000 tons of concrete, and 450 tons of non-recyclable plastic for the blades. Moreover, a solar wind installation with a similar power output is even more material intensive, requiring roughly 1.5 times more steel, glass, and cement. And this is just to replace one 50-megawatt gas turbine. In the world, there are more than 9,500 similar or even larger facilities. Evaluating the scale of what is happening is challenging. Most countries agree with decarbonization, but they hardly discuss the necessary materials needed to achieve net zero emissions. However, stopping the economy is impossible. To avoid a crisis, all societies must support economic growth, and growth requires economic activity, which entails employment. Any human, animal, or machine work requires energy extracted from the physical resources of the planet. Since the Industrial Revolution, coal, oil, and gas served this purpose. However, by the 1960s, it became clear that fossil fuel consumption increased the amount of carbon in the atmosphere. As the connection between greenhouse gas emissions and climate change became evident, states began taking on commitments towards decarbonization. All UN member states have agreed to achieve zero emissions by 2050. The main agreement addressing this issue is the 2015 Paris Agreement. This document outlines commitments to reach zero emissions and aims to limit global warming within 2 degrees Celsius using a system of contributions determined at the national level. However, the fundamental problem of the necessity for economic growth and the demand for physical resources remains unresolved. Some developed countries have reduced their overall emissions, but they have achieved this through deindustrialization of their economy and transferring production to China for lower labor and production costs. Nevertheless, progress has been made through the extraction of environmentally friendly minerals. However, creating a potential for green energy comes with challenges. Existing technologies, no matter how impressive they are from an engineering standpoint, are simply not sufficient. Developing renewable energy sources requires approximately 10 times more raw materials than non-renewable sources. Moreover, the amount of waste will increase in a geometric progression. By 2050, the annual disposal of wind turbine blades will account for 300 million tons of non-recyclable plastic waste. The vast amount of waste materials will also complicate the recycling of rare earth elements, such as dysprosium, neodymium, and indium, since they will be extracted at lower concentrations than mining from ores. Therefore, in the future, waste recycling may become economically unfeasible. Moreover, it is necessary to consider the demand for eco-friendly internal combustion engines and renewable energy storage systems. They will require huge battery capacity, both for vehicles and larger installations. For instance, to store energy from a 100-megawatt wind farm, 10,000 tons of Tesla-class batteries are needed. Contrary to advertisements, today's technologies have not reached such a level yet. There might be a breakthrough in developing new batteries that can reduce the mineral demand while maintaining the chemical composition. Building the necessary infrastructure will require spatial fixation, places where mining, processing, and waste disposal occur. Some areas on the planet will turn into waste burial sites, potentially on a global scale. For example, extracting 1 ton of lithium from brine requires 1.9 million tons of water. This has already led to the depletion of water resources, harming agriculture in the lithium triangle in Argentina, Bolivia, and Chile. Chemical runoff is also polluting rivers in Chile, Argentina, and Tibet, threatening entire freshwater ecosystems. Experts refer to these places as sacrifice zones. Furthermore, geopolitical tension disrupts global value chains, and this will continue in the coming decades. Restraining Russian resources behind an iron curtain will jeopardize Western purchases of strategic minerals. This is particularly concerning for Washington, which is entirely dependent on imports for 17 key minerals and more than half of its supply for 29 more. The consequences of the war in Ukraine could be a sign of upcoming events. In February 2022, aluminum and nickel prices reached record highs, and although they fell again, they remained at a higher baseline level. The key factor is America, one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases and a precursor in policy formation. The United States might attempt to meet its mineral needs through outsourcing to neighboring or friendly countries, thanks to its partnerships with nations like Canada, Norway, Finland, and Spain. The agreement signed with Australia in May 2023 on important minerals could serve as the foundation for American supply chains. However, the fact remains, Beijing holds all the cards when it comes to processing and refining. China accounts for approximately 35% of nickel processing, 60% of lithium, 70% of cobalt, and up to 90% of rare earth elements. Beijing outpaces competitors and is currently expanding in other directions, aiming to control supply chains universally. Active implementation of nuclear energy presents a tangible tool for decarbonization. Replacing just the established nuclear capacities of the UK will cost at least $400 billion. However, the main problem lies in the time horizon of several decades. Nuclear energy can play a certain role in the green transition, but decarbonization by 2050 is highly unlikely. In its current form, the extraction, processing, and disposal of environmentally friendly materials could provoke new conflicts between major powers and between middle-tier states globally. Therefore, resource-based conflicts will persist. Ultimately, energy remains the lifeblood of any economy. Do you think UN member states will be able to achieve zero emissions by 2050? Share your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Kara Show channel. See you soon.